What is going on, traders? Welcome back to Mr. Bagel's channel for trading update and analysis. We have so much to talk about today. And once again, if you do enjoy today's content, please make sure you subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. Like the video because every day we have so much to share with you guys that you don't want to miss. Now, without any further ado, let's take a deep dive into what happened in the market in the last 24 hours. So it was pretty weak. I wouldn't say the market is in a very bad shape, but some notable names absolutely took a dive, right? Of course, that includes Nvidia. So what happened in the market underneath the hood? Let's find out. And again, we always talk about the importance of having S&P, QQQ, VIX, and the futures on your chart because these are your prime evidence of what to think about in the market, what kind of movement can be happening going forward, and what kind of decision we have to make after getting this kind of information. So S&P, we are still respecting this trend line. We had three touch points and has been selling off, and in the previous session it wasn't all that bad. Yes, we rejected on the 50 days moving average, but on a very nice volume on the session, the bulls kind of took control of the situation. But non-farm payroll is going to be your determining factor of how and where the market is going to go next. If it's really good, we might break out on this upward trend line and make even new all-time high. But if it's really bad, we can continue the downside and potentially break the support, and that would be breaking the 20 weekly moving average, and that would mark as the first time in a long time that we cannot find any support on that major level. All right, and after seeing this, what can we be thinking about in the market going forward? We have to look at the VIX. All right, I would say stop using fear and greed index. That's a broken metric. You don't want to be using it. VIX is going to be your prime choice, right? Obviously, we know that after that FOMC, very dramatic, VIX went up to almost 30 points and it has been compressed ever since. But it has also found support in the last couple weeks. In the last 24 hours, obviously we made a new high on the shorter time frame and then pushed down a little bit and found very nice support. On the MACD, BX Trender also turned green and RSI is just right around that moving average. So something is happening underneath the hood. We don't know what that is. I think the market is still a little bit on edge about non-farm payroll numbers, so we have to wait and see. And also remember, guys, for these kind of major events, the first one to move is always going to be wrong. Okay, you don't want to be trading at the market open. You want to wait for a little bit for the price action to develop, then you take your trade. Now, some setups I'm looking at, including Palo Alto. I mean, I don't know what happened in the last few sessions. Probably some analysts came out to say something dire about the company, but I never really listened to these things because I remember back in April 2024, Arista Networks was making all-time high, and some guy from some investment fund had to come out to say something bad about the stock, and then it was trading down to like probably 200 days moving average and has things made another new all-time high. So they just want to come out to say something to create some kind of panic, and you sell it, they pick it back up at low price. So never fall into that kind of trap, right? So we're still very early in January, so it's always good to look at monthly chart because that's still very relevant. We obviously previously we had volume of 119 million, and then we had 94 million and higher high and higher low on the decreasing side on the downside volume. So still looks pretty good. Also, again, always zoom out, guys, if there's any doubt. We are still making higher highs and higher low. I mean, on the weekly, we haven't found any bid. However, we did find some support on this weekly moving average. But the more interesting, the more interesting thing I wanted to point out with you guys is the 200 days moving average. You see, the last time we did this was back in August. We opened below 200 days moving average, and then we found very nice support, a very good volume, The very next day, we had another retest on the 200 days moving average, and we just took off from here, right? And that was after two declining volume. We are having the very same setup here today. Is the same thing gonna happen? I mean, I don't know. I think there's a possibility. And just because we are still in the upward channel, I think, again, in the last 24 hours, we opened below 200 days moving average. We actually closed above it. We might have another retest, but the volume is looking very, very nice. All right. But if you're considering taking this long trade, definitely have your stop loss accordingly because this is our major support here. If it breaks, that's the break of structure, right? Have your stop loss. And what do I know? If non-farm payroll is really, really good, if the market can make another new all-time high, this thing is just gonna rip, right? Another long setup I wanted to talk about was applied materials. And because if you're at the end of December, you always want to look at this 3 month time frame. So what does that tell you? We went down for 6 months, right? 428 million and 419 million on the volume. Still very high, but it's on the decreasing side. So applied material has done nothing for 6 months. Is it time for the stock to shine? I would argue and say I think so. Just because if you're also looking at the weekly, on the volume we have been accumulating, and of course we found support on the market bias. This thing is still in the green, this color right here. And also on MACD, BX Trender has turned pretty nicely, and RSI has been standing very nicely above the moving average as well. We obviously rejected on the weekly moving average. So right now, I think non-farm payroll is gonna do the magic, right? If it's really, really good, guess what happens? This thing is gonna rip. If it's really bad, we might have a break of structure, right? So, I mean, never tried to be an artist, but sometimes this trend line do indeed work. So we broke above it with a pretty significant, very significant volume, that is, and then higher highs and higher lows, and then we went down, found support on the very same trend line, also closed above the moving average on decreasing volume. That is telling you that if the market is neutral on non-farm payroll, this thing has more possibility to go to the upside than to the downside, right? But if non-farm payroll is really, really bad, this thing is just gonna be decimated. Okay, it's gonna have a break of structure, nothing to think about too much. This is what's right in front of us. I think non-farm payroll is gonna be determining so many things in the market going forward. And if you do think about taking some short, I think Visa can be one of your candidates just because obviously it's a very good name. We love it. But if you're looking at the weekly chart, so very good volume over here as you can see. And then the very next week, we have very bad volume. And we kind of rejected on the same resistance level at $321. So we could not take it any further from here. And sure enough, the very next week we had lower high and lower low on very uneven lower volume. So this week, obviously, we just sold off. So is it very bearish on the short time frame? Yes, it is. So let's look at daily. We sell, we came back up, but very weak. I would say that was a dead cat bounce or maybe just some covering of the shorts. Not really a good buying the dip kind of style. And then so, sure enough, we rejected on the 20 days moving average. I think for this short to really work, we will have to break this support level at $309. Right? If non-farm payroll is bad, this thing crashes below that support level. This is one of the shorts that you really want to consider taking. And moving over to Tesla. So what did Tesla do? going over to weekly. Obviously, this was the first time in a very long time we saw higher volume on the downside. And then, sure enough, the very next week, we made lower high and lower low and on a very weak buying volume. And the rest, you know, the rest. It has been pretty bad in the last few sessions. Moving over to the daily, we are trading below 20 days moving average. Respecting this trend line, we keep rejecting. And the volume for the last session, we had 73 million compared to 75 million previously, lower high and lower low, very weak buying. So I think Tesla is going to be your top pick if you do consider taking short position in this market right now. Yeah, so again, non-farm payroll, don't need to jump the gun, guys. Always wait for a little bit for the price action to develop, and we don't know what's gonna happen on that day. We just know that always have your VIX ready, have your S&P on the chart, have your supply and demand level on the chart. And if you do decide to go long, I think Palo Alto and Applied Material can be very awesome. And if you do consider taking any short position, I think Tesla and Visa is going to be, pretty good candidates for that area as well. And once again, this is not any financial advice. You're trading on your own risk. I'm just providing you with what I'm seeing in the market. Please make sure you do whatever is comfortable and have your stop loss, hedge it if you have to. And we're not having a US session today. I will see you guys back here on Friday after non-farm payroll. Until then, happy trading. Whatever you're doing, I will see you back on Friday. Ciao for now.